All right, wonderful content creators. We are back again. We got Ryan here and back in the glorious US of A. I'm so excited to be home. I'm excited to be working on a new project today. We're going to catch up, but the most core thing we're doing this episode is more writing work. That keeps rewarding us the more we work on that. Ryan has put together an interesting exercise for us to try out that I'm excited about. Ryan, why don't you just tell us what we're going to do today?
I'm very excited for this because we're going to look at someone who I really want to emulate, and we're going to look at their very first publication, a TV show that they were on, and then their second and final TV show.
This sounds exciting. You get me pumped up. Heck yeah.
It's going to be a great timeline to look at them grow, and then we're going to use what we learned from that directly to help me rewrite my own intro for my podcast.
I like all parts of this. It's going to be a good live on-air thing. I was watching someone else's content today, and he was talking about sales. And I can watch 100 videos of people telling you how to do it, and you don't learn half as much as him sitting there just showing a live video of a guy actually on sales calls. Like, there's so many details that you wouldn't think to say. So it's going to be different, but this is going to be a really good exercise.
Could be a car crash, could be wonderful. There's only one way for us to find out.
Anything could happen. Do you want to keep it a surprise, or do you want to tell? Because I think it's such a good person you picked that I kind of want to just put that at the top of the episode.
We can spoil the surprise. Anthony Bourdain.
Fuck yeah.
The man, the myth, the legend.
I wasn't sure what to expect because I know your writing is good, and I know your writing instincts are good. I don't like on the road. I don't want to have anything to do with on the road. And I got halfway through reading the article, like, oh wait, this is Anthony Bourdain. I like this guy. This is great. And I'm even more pumped. So this is gonna be good for me.
It's so good, and his writing is really what makes the show special in my mind. Was he got in there, he showed people what that culture was like, what their history was, and really he was telling a story that happened to revolve around food. That's kind of what I'm trying to do, but with drinking. So yeah. I think it will be a good fit.
Skill and personality. So before we get to the work part, let's do a little bit of catch up on the things that we've done and are new with us. There's 3 things I want to cover today. Let's sandwich it in. I'll go first. Getting back from my trip, this has been actually on my calendar for months that today will be the day that I do a major shift. I've been studying various things for the past year and a half. Drone, videography, photography, voice acting, more things that I want to take your time naming. And it's embarrassing because it looks like just like someone who has shiny, object syndrome and just constantly jumps to the new thing, doesn't have a plan, just like, a little kid chasing candy. I've been wanting to understand how all these things connect together. And now the day that I would have enough that I can start making plans of, okay, you can see from the mountaintop, what do you start putting together? This, I think, is going to be important ongoing discussion with you where, for example, I was mentioning before the episode, I got sent this beautiful video of filmography of Tennessee. And it's amazing. But now I know that I got to actually take a bite of all these apples. I know how much work it took that guy to take that video from a 9 to a 10. And, stay with me on this because it's not as negative as it sounds. I also know how little value it added to go from a 9 to a 10. The core thesis I have is that combining these things together is where you really get a massive amount of value. It's more than just an 80-20 thing where, you can take, voice acting, writing, and videography and get up to a 6 out of 10 really quick, a lot quicker than it would take to get to the last 4 points, and then merge those together. And then, okay, great. We got, an 18 instead of a 10. But they actually multiply. I think that when you have these multiple arts combining together, you have a script that goes along with your video, you have music that goes along with the script and the video, I think they multiply each other. And like, this is the thing that I'm actually passionate about. Like, that's the thing that I had, like, something's drawing me, but I didn't know what it was. I needed to like find it out. Like, yeah, this kept on drawing me towards this, like combining them together. And this is the kind of thing that you would freaking like blow my mind with, but I'm going to preemptively strike you on it. This is exactly what happened to me years ago with my first career as a musician. Like, at the same time, I could not believe how in love I was with being that person and doing that stuff. But also, it was like really slog. It was hard to motivate myself. It was hard to push myself to do it. And I actually, in hindsight, remember now one day thinking, I don't want to be the guy who spends all day learning to play just 3 notes. I want to be the guy who puts those notes into something and knows like which like song we needed, what genre we needed, and like why that fits with all the other pieces. That's what I'm doing now. I think that's what I'm excited about. So if there's any parts that you don't want to keep in, I want to hear about that difference you have. But this is the main focus I'm going to be doing now.
That sounds great. I love that you're taking that next step and you feel comfortable, like you understand those 3 notes well enough to where you know when to use them, how they're connected. I look forward to seeing what comes out of this and learning alongside you.
Yeah, this will be a bigger discussion. We're definitely focusing on writing for right now. That is the foundation, the core. But behind everything, it's just an emotion and just matching those all up. So that's the outside facing thing. The inside facing thing is the reason why I'm taking that time to start looking at the whole thing and what to do next is I'm going to start planning on how I can start, finding a way to like build something of value, trying to build a business. All of this up to now has been research and development, basic skill building. Like, I feel like I have the tools. I just need to figure out what thing to build. And that's just going to be its own journey.
I'm so excited to be a part of it and try and help you build where I can.
Before we go into the next point, is there anything on that you have similar going on that you want to share? Like, I think you've had some thoughts about these topics.
I definitely have been thinking about how things tie together and where I'm going to be going next with it. I don't want to get into too much of that right now because it's all extremely fluid and I will say one thing and a week later it will change.
Mm.
But all I'm going to say is there's some very fun things that I have in the work already and some very fun things that I just found out about that I'm going to be making some really exciting and fun content about soon.
Awesome. Good. Well, I'm glad we do these so often that we'll have time to see how that changes in every little bit. For me, as someone who struggles to not talk too much, it's been a relief to have so many of these, and I can start mashing the skill of, it's fine. We can just save that for next time. It doesn't have to come out of my mouth today.
I'm very excited to hear what cards you've been keeping close to your vest now and when the time is right.
So the next thing with that, this blows my mind. Wanting to actually figure out what to do for a product. My previous thoughts were all whiskey related. Last year, I worked on making the Irish whiskey program. And there's no dancing around it. The sad thing is being so focused on this has really changed me in a lot of ways. It's a lot of productivity mastery and really getting into like what your deep values are. And sadly, I just don't have the same connection with drinking that I used to have.
Only hurts me a little.
It feels like breaking up with a girlfriend. It hurts me a lot. I fucking love the hell out of your episodes. Like, that is great. That is beautiful. And also a great sign for you that it has so much appeal on the story front that, it stands on its own. But where this leaves me is I need to come up with brand new ideas. Through that, Tony Robbins program I went through, like I had created 30 different ideas of business ideas and product ideas. And some of them were pretty decent. All of them are related to alcohol and I can't really use those. So like that old phrase that the person who's going to succeed is the person who never stops. And the person who never stops is the person who loves what he's doing. And I like it. I just don't love it enough that I would be able to like grind on it like this. So I'm going to try to start figuring out ideas like, oh yeah, you're my hero. So here's my bombshell is getting more brave about just leaping and taking risks no matter what. The primary person that I, want to emulate, the person that I've learned so much from on pretty much every front that I really value for the past years, recently announced that he's going to start for the first time doing like business coaching. Officially, he's coaching on YouTube skills, but I think, he'd be kind enough to share business skills as well. And like, I was like, I can't not take this opportunity, even if I fall flat on my face. Like,
You have to.
This is the same person where years ago he suggested that YouTube Academy course that I just kicked myself for not doing sooner. It's like, I'm live or die, I'm doing it now. So signed up for it. This Tuesday, I have my first session with him.
Oh man, that's exciting. I didn't realize that would be coming up so soon.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to get ready for. He's like, oh, so send me something. Like, I have no idea what you may send. I've never done this before. He's like, oh, send me like a script you're working on, and then we can I can review it, and then we can discuss it when we get to well, I don't have a script. Everything I've written is about the easy things. I mean, back it up. All the scripts I'm writing are about topics I don't care that much about, so I won't fucking obsess about perfecting it and actually make a small pop. But I need his help on the style of stuff that I truly want to create. So I need to cram real fast to pick a topic that I really care about and actually write a script that I can give to him with enough time left over that I actually can review it. So it's not like a big pain in the ass for the guy who's supposed to be, I want to make a good impression on.
You don't want him being spell check for you.
Yeah. So, that's what I'm working on the next couple of days. But this is definitely prime build the plane on the way down territory.
Yeah, that is a little nerve-wracking that short time to have a big script when you don't know what is going to be on yet. But I believe in you, man. You have proven yourself time and time again to put in the effort.
The thing thank you. The thing that makes me really excited is so much of this really seems to be emotional shifts. Like, those are the biggest skills that guarantee success. And looking at this right now, the fact that I'm comfortable with making mistakes, the fact that I am okay with this goes poorly, but just as long as I showed up and tried and I learned from either the success or the explosion, that makes me very proud of myself. That's not something I would have felt before. And everything I've read, everything I learned shows that is by far the biggest way to learn and get faster. That is the big difference between who succeeds and who never does anything. So the fact that, holy crap, I'm that kind of person now. Holy crap.
That is so exciting, my friend. And do you have any broad ideas what you're going to be aiming your script at?
Yeah, I keep coming more and more let's just rip the band-aid off. So there's a lot of things that are just too close to my heart that I just don't talk about, and there's no avoiding anymore. So basically the guy, I never even say his name ever because it's so bloody important to me. His guy's name's Charlie Hoopert. He is on the YouTube channel Charisma on Command. He has a course, Charisma University, and it's just really niche that matters a lot to me, where it's okay, everyone's looking about how to make money or how to get laid. It's this is how to just deepen your connections with everybody. It will pay off in the corporate world. Will make it easier for you to date, but this is going to actually help with the meaningful things of life. And that hooks me. And that is also the kind of education I want to do in the world. So the kind of things I want to be making, my big motivation for doing all of this is I sort of want to be some type of life coach. Real cringy to say, but this is it. I think of so many things that have, especially in the past 4 years, have just massively improved my life. I'm so much happier just sitting in, they talk about your base happiness when nothing's going on, so much more than it was before. And it's man, I wish so much I had known those things years ago. And that's kind of my driving force. I would love to help others who are smart enough and would find this stuff on their own, but help them to find it faster and sooner and get to live more of their life enjoying that.
That is a very noble goal. I like that a lot.
So I'm kicking around right now that maybe for this script I put together this weekend is I'm going to write something about how learning filmography and photography has just changed how much beauty I can see in the world. So my like moment to moment just level of like baseline happiness actually was risen by doing that course.
That's really great, and I've already got ideas spinning in my head about how you can make a title of like living life through the lens of a camera or something like that, and the lessons that taught you.
Definitely going to be collaborating with you more. Like it's time to stop being a student, start to like try to get shit done, and not and like relying on your skills. Like tapping into that more is going to be great. You know, like there's been a lot of things where I need to learn on my own, but now like that's done, I can start to like get into work.
Writing is one of those things where it's very hard to take a step back, look at your own writing, and be objective on it. You can't learn that by yourself. You just need to keep reading good writing and have someone there to point out when you're doing something stupid, because we all do it.
Brilliant. And this brings up like, man, don't want to turn this into like Ethan's chat hour, but it was just freaking unbelievable, Ryan. This weekend, I went out to like my favorite writing spot in Nashville. There's a great coffee shop and there's a beautiful couch right now. And like anyway, there's so many reasons why it's perfect to get the juices flowing. I still struggle at doing it because writing's so hard for me. If I go there, I'm always guaranteed I will at least write some. And I'm sitting down this weekend. I'm in the zone. This feels great. This place works. I see some people come around, sit down. I'm like, oh, huh. Two more people come around. They're like, hey, are you with us? I'm like, no, this is solo time. Two more people come in. Like, oh, so you with the group? I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, are you with the writing group? I'm like, writing group.
I forgot about this story. You told this to me before.
Like, I'm struggling to say no because no, but like, it's hard to say I'm not. Like, that's literally what I came into this chair to do right now.
No, but you should be.
Yeah, that was the end of the story when, I just popped my headphones. I'm in my zone. You guys do it. It was great to be able to witness their process. So it turned out that it is the style of writing that I'm actually struggling to avoid as much as possible. They're doing the bread and butter McDonald's fictional novels, which is, like, I can get advice for that everywhere. That's been shooting me in the foot, where that's all of the writing tutorials and advice I get, and that doesn't fit for what I'm doing. And it's actually made what I'm trying to do harder because I have to unbreak these habits that I've been learning. But the format they went through was great. This is kind of what I was talking a little bit to you before the episode about. They had intentional things to make their loops smaller so they could get through everyone in the group, so they could have more. The more drafts you go through, it seems they've decided that taught them faster, and it was a good experience to watch that.
That's fantastic, man. And what a happy coincidence that you happen to be writing in the meeting spot of a writing group.
God, man, think about the reverse. Like, those are probably the most motivating moments. Because if you think, like, what if I had just said, you know what, this is too much work, or I'm like afraid to put myself out there, it's too embarrassing. It's easy to say that. Like, if I had done that and I was sitting there just waiting before I go out for another day of watching football and drinking beer with my friends, and they sat down like, oh, hi, we're a writing group. I was like, fuck, I wish I was doing that. Like, I wish I'd started doing that years ago. Like, imagine how that would feel. But instead, I'm just grinning my ears. I'm like, yeah, me too, boys.
Hey, sometimes life just throws you where you need to be.
Yeah. All right, so last bullet point on that, I think it's just worth so much. Charlie Huber, he does a private Patreon podcast, and there's this one part that from this, like, it was actually the question I submitted, and he's like, okay, so for writing serious stuff on YouTube, and he's like, you just got to wake up to the fact YouTube is entertainment. And it never really hit me that much before. That's true. If you're trying to make really highly educational things on YouTube, if you're trying to make this brilliant life coaching stuff that's going to change people's lives and stuff, YouTube is entertainment. It's not for there. You could give like little grains of sand, but mostly it's really just a place where you put down your fishing line to start hooking people to see who actually is interested in beginning to do the stuff that actually teaches you. And God, that was great advice, because that separates it. Like, I've been trying to put a square peg in a round hole and being frustrated why does it fit? Like, oh, it's not supposed to, you know. Focus on making these really, you know, TED Talk style entertaining videos that happen to be about this topic. And then make something else, whether it's the blog or a course or whatever you want to do, in-person coaching, like whether you want to do it for money or do it for, you know, philanthropy, you still have to pick a separate venue, a separate format for actually getting the work done. That was huge. So I wanted to share that.
That is a excellent point to make. Yeah, YouTube is entertainment first.
I think podcasts are halfway in between. Like, I've learned a lot from some of them, but going back from all I've learned, I'll listen to a podcast that I used to love. I'm like, man, there's just so much fluff. Like, I want to learn more information faster. Like, oh, well, you got to go to the book. Okay, I'm doing books now.
Ethan, I think you are one of the few highly motivated individuals out there. A lot of people need that fluff.
That's really wise. You know, that's the whole thing where you need all those steps. Like, I think at one point we start off with, like, we only want to do the serious stuff. We don't want to do anything else. But you need that. Like, you need the short form on TikTok to hook the people. And of that, people who are motivated enough, you know, okay, the YouTube video, that's maybe 5 minutes long, people from there, and then filter that. And you just need to, I love this phrase. Like, you need to meet people where they are and then guide them to where they want to go. It's still where they're trying to get to, but if you don't go to where they are first, like, how can you be a guide? Like, the guide doesn't just stay on the mountaintop, like, wait for the guy to come to him. He likes, all right, it's time for you to start moving on your journey, man.
Absolutely. That is such great advice. And I mean, the chances of you catching a fish with one rod in the ocean might be pretty good if you know a good fishing spot. But if you've got 10, you're probably going to hook something.
Well, that's my world. How about you?
My world is good right now. In between a lot of things right now, so it's a weird period for me, but little serene, little relaxed, and excited to get into things a bit deeper and give them the attention they deserve.
So that's something for us to look forward to in the horizon?
Oh yes, there's quite a few things on the horizon. Doing a lot of writing right now, and still have a lot more to go, but doing a lot of writing.
Do you want to tell us what it's about?
So it's a lot of writing for episode 3. I did write out a lot of short form content and have done nothing with it because I wrote it all out and then realized sticking to a script while doing short form content is basically worthless because you can't read the script while looking to the camera. It just doesn't seem genuine. And at that point, if it's so short, you should just make it up on the spot so it has real emotion. So I wasted a lot of time writing those before, but
so you're writing 30-second things word for word?
Yep, pretty much. Good practice for writing, but not exactly useful.
I would love to see some of those if you did, because I actually think from an outsider's eyes, the awkward, poorly acted, word for word thing has a lot more value than you realize. I've looked at some of the vlog stuff I put together, and I can see the ones where I was doing well, and I can see the ones where I was doing bad. And the bad ones are like, yeah, this is still good. This is still positive.
They're well written. I just think I need to put more time into them than I want to for short form content and make it more of a voiceover style. That way I can read the script word for word into a mic and not need to worry about eye contact, memorizing it, any of that.
There's always the bullet point way, but there's also if you just read it word for word, and since it's on the same phone that you're recording with, it doesn't quite come out, elegant. That is just your pot. That'll eventually start getting smoother every time.
So here's the thing that is a big hurdle that I ran into that I didn't realize would be a hurdle. I can't have my phone camera running while I have the script up on it. So I have to look at it, try and memorize it, switch over to the camera, and then hit record.
Oh, there's apps for that. Like,
There is, but I've yet to find one that actually does it well and doesn't put like a logo over my face or anything like that.
okay.
Yep.
Teleprompter apps are like the biggest mafia scam of content creation.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And at this point, I think it would be cheaper and easier for me to just admit that I know what I'm talking about and record a video on the fly.
Mm. That is the
I don't
ideal
need
skill
to
to get
script
to.
out a video on whiskey that I know the story of backwards and forwards.
I have seen a lot of success where like people actually do short form content where they make their video and they're like, I'm doing a bullet point for each. I can remember one bullet point, say the one bullet point that's 30 seconds long. And they're like, oh, well, these are all each short form content. And then when I smoosh them together, then I have like a long form content. But you're like, look away. Okay. Finish
That
recording.
would probably be a good way of doing things. So, I'm gonna learn from that eventually.
Okay, so you said you're working on season 3. That's exciting.
Yes, I am. I've picked out a couple stories, still have a few more to pick out. Uh, Please, if anyone's listening to this and has a story they want me to do, send it my way. But there's some great bigger stories, and then there's a few that I'm really excited about that are smaller ones that I never heard of. Like, I went to a small distillery in Wisconsin, and they had a bottle of rum named after the only one person who has been found guilty of piracy on the Great Lakes.
We don't get caught.
Which immediately in my mind went, well, if I ever get old enough and just want to make a name for myself, it'd be easy to be the second person to do that.
Mm.
Like that can't be too hard. I'll just be a pirate and then I'm cemented in history.
I could see you doing that and then writing an episode about it. Like, I just wanted to write about myself, so I became a pirate.
Yeah, I don't know how well that would do, but I mean, be entertaining.
All right. Do you want to talk a little bit about vertical and horizontal before we get to the exercise?
Yes. So we were talking a little bit before hitting the record button, catching up with each other, and started just naturally talking about, is it better to record a video horizontally or vertically?
Mm.
And I've always been a horizontal guy.
Mm.
Always thought about content and videos as, well, this is how it would look if it was up on a TV screen. And recently it was pointed out to me that most people don't hold their phones every day in horizontal landscape. Why are you making them do work to watch your content? Film it vertically so that way it's in line with how they're already holding their phone. And that was just one of those, oh, well, that's really fucking stupid. Why did I not think of that?
It was Corey, wasn't it?
It wasn't Corey, actually.
No way.
No, it was another good friend that I don't talk to nearly enough, and I don't think he'd want to be on the show, unfortunately, but he's one of those guys who doesn't have much social media presence or anything, but he looks at something and just goes, why are you doing this way? You know it'd be better this because of this. And he's right every goddamn time, but it's so annoying because he doesn't do any of it himself.
You know, that does make sense. At the same time, well, how do you explain the YouTube mobile app? It's still horizontal and it's still like, turn it. Now I'm watching the video. Otherwise, it's on the top of the screen and not even using the rest of it.
I don't know. I don't use that too often. I'm still the type of guy where I look up YouTube videos on my laptop here.
Yeah,
So
I take my thing everywhere.
I think I've become the older demographic somehow.
Had to happen. I think there's going to be some good things from that. What I've been thinking, so that was one other thing on my list, my long ass list of things I was supposed to learn for my trip, was I actively spent a lot of time filming and taking photos in vertical, just going with it. And like I actually did start to like vertical more than I did before. And I think where I landed at is, and I hate this answer, that they're both amazing for different things. You know, like I'm looking around buildings, vertical is so much better. And when you want to have that depth of field, like you want to get the ground, see like the land's really coming up to you, like vertical is so much better for that. And then there's other times where like if you're like it's a car, like that's got to be horizontal. There's a dozen different things like landscapes, obviously that's what it's named after. But I don't think there's ever going to be an easy answer where if I could just for TikTok, great, I always do this. Or if I do YouTube, I always do that. I think you're always going to have stuff that doesn't fit in the frame because it's a different shape. And you just gotta, we have to learn how to weld things together.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And you mentioned Corey, and I think I said this on the show before, and he should reach out and correct me if I'm wrong. But the one thing I've noticed from watching him is it seems like if it's a piece of content that he's filming where it's on the fly, not scripted anything, he just whips his phone out and records it vertically. But if it's something where it's more of a planned shot, something where like, oh, I know I can establish the scene through this shot, then he does it horizontally.
That seems like a good rule of thumb. That definitely comes back to, you know, short should be vertical because that's all the platforms, and longer stuff should like horizontal. Also, the bigger rule of you should plan for everything. Everything that I learned in my trip, the answer is still like I could tell you what it is, but you can still reduce it down to you should plan ahead. Doing it pre-production is just massive. So if you think before you start speaking, what exactly I'm going to say, then just the ad-libbing comes out so much better. If you think, oh, is this going to be a short little chat or am I going to go into real detail? Then you know, am I going to do it horizontal? Am I going to do it vertical? Like so many things, which it seems obvious, which is why no one teaches it. But like I would never do. I would be like, oh, it's time to start recording. Phone out. Oh crap, what should I be doing?
Yep. It's one of those things again where the people who are real professionals at it make it look so seamless and effortless where you feel like, oh, I should be able to just do that no problem. And then you go and try it firsthand and go, oh, that's a lot harder than they make it look.
There's so much thinking that goes on in their head, and so much of that has already been done before where they're just recognizing the pieces on the board and going, oh, okay, like I can just get out plan 15.
Yeah, that I fully believe that either Corey's a supercomputer and just has all this knowledge up there, easy to access. Oh, this is going to be this type of shot. That's perfect for this scenario. Yeah. Or he's just a mastermind and plotting all of this beforehand, 5 steps ahead and going, oh, I know Ryan likes Andalusia whiskey. I'll take him here, which means I'll probably talk to Moose, which means he'll probably show me a barrel house, and I should use a vertical panning shot of that. Either way, much smarter guy than I am. It's amazing watching him work.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that sometime. One tip, that I'm going to repeat it, that if you shoot in horizontal at 4K, cropping out the center slice will give you an exact vertical video in 1080p, which is all the resolution you're going to get on a vertical like TikTok or Instagram anyway. So you can always do that. If you wanted to just film everything in horizontal and do that cropping step, you're solid. You're good to go. I don't know if you can say the same thing about filming everything in vertical and then trying to make it good for long form.
Interesting. That might just be a selling point for me to get a new phone with a 4K camera.
I've been nuts in trying to make everything beautiful 4K, and realizing that you really, really only want 1080p. But if you get 4K, that gives you like, it's like a big sheet of cookie dough, so you can use a cookie cutter to get what you want out of it.
That makes a lot of sense and is probably the best argument for it I've heard so far.
Do it, Ryan. Do it.
Maybe.
All right. Anything more on that, or do you want to get into the exercise?
I think I'm ready to start reading aloud a little bit here.
All right, Anthony Bourdain, teach me your wisdom.
So I'm going to share the screen of this article so anyone watching on video can actually see what I'm reading a little bit.
At some point, you're going to have to read your intro so we can know what we're going to try and weld. But I like starting with the celebrity inspiration.
Oh, yes. I mean, he's leagues above me, even though this is his first published one. At least everything that I found online said this was his first published one, and that's why I went with it.
How old do you
If
think
you
he
ever
was
get.
when this?
Sorry, say that again?
How old do you think he was?
I do not know. I'm very jealous, though, because his writing style here is phenomenal. I'm not going to read the whole paper, but please, it's called Don't Eat Before Reading This. Look it up. He wrote it in 1999. It is phenomenal, and so much of it seems to still ring true within the culinary world.
Yeah, well, I'll add it to the show notes.
All right. Without further ado, good food, good eating is all about blood and organs, cruelty and decay. It's about sodium-loaded pork fat, stinky triple cream cheeses, the tender thymus glands, and the disintended livers of young animals. It's about danger, risking the dark bacterial forces of beef, chicken, cheese, and shellfish. Your first 207 well-fleet oysters may transport you to a state of rapture, but your 208th may send you to bed with the sweats, chills, and vomits. So that's, to me, is just a great way of introducing that we're talking about food, of course, and how much of it is romanticized even in his own mind. It's great attention getter right off the bat.
It feels like he's doing three things at once and weaving them together. So, like the magician, it feels like there's only one thing happening, but he's actually getting the power of multiple things at once. Like off the top of my head, it's a very tangible descriptive language, which reminds me of your writing style. Stinky triple cream cheeses, distended livers of young animals. Like, why is it liver? Okay, liver. Why is it distended? Why is it of an animal? We know it's from an animal. Why is it a young animal?
Young one.
It makes it very, very tangible, which makes it so you can imagine a real instance instead of a generic thing, and that makes you start to feel sensation.
Absolutely, and it all seems pretty dark in this. It really is showing a very clear emotion about food, which is something we don't often see, is people saying, like, this is the dark, ugly side of what you're eating.
That's the second thing. He's weaving emotion into it. For lack of like the eloquence to be more gentle, he's forcing emotions in it that don't belong there, and it makes it way more interesting. The voice acting class I took, they talked about this, where just pick an emotion or a motivation or whatever and shove it in there, even if they didn't tell you, just so it's not bland. And whatever you pick is going to be more interesting than just being generic. So here, you obviously you hit it off the bat. Like, it's dark. He says specifically, it's about danger. And he kind of warms up to it. He starts off, it's about sodium. Like, I love sodium. I think people are just being nonsense about that. But in most people's minds, like, ooh, that's a dangerous thing, right? And then he builds to it, like, it's about danger. And everything's like the most kind of like grotesque version of it. The end, like, oh, if you eat too many, you can get sick. That's like, yes. Yeah, we know that's a boring fact. But he's intentionally, I guess maybe like stop me if I'm going too long on this, but it's not a natural thing that would happen. It took an act of creation for him to add that emotion into it. And it works. This is the exact kind of thing that me as a new writer, I'd feel that doesn't make sense to be there. That doesn't belong there. I'm going to feel really cringy doing it, and it's going to look terrible when I read it. But the human brain is so good at making connections that a lot of things work that you wouldn't think to. And looking at this, like, it seamlessly flows together. It fits and it adds like this, you got that feeling of a freaking cinematic story happening right there.
Oh, I mean, the very first sentence, he's introducing conflict. Good food, good eating is all about blood, organs, cruelty, and decay. We go from good to cruelty and decay in
Mm.
one sentence. That is such a good,
Oh,
just
yeah.
good versus evil right there in the first sentence.
He's got the symmetry. He says good twice, and then he says suffering twice.
It's such a good intro for setting up what the paragraph or what the whole paper is going to be about, just food, and making it seem exciting and interesting and getting you to want to listen to the whole thing.
Like, I want to get through a lot of this, but I feel like, man, we could easily spend an entire episode just on this paragraph, my friend. Um, the weaving between explicit and implicit emotion. Like, we keep talking about how if you make it implicit, so you don't directly say it, but it's enough that the reader starts imagining it, it's a lot more powerful because they created that idea or that question. In addition to the place, and he weaves out, so he'll thought it was like danger. And there's other part where he just hints at it, where it's like, oh, the dark bacterial forces. I'm like, bacteria could be penicillin. It could be a lot of things, but clearly it's a little nudge. Like, isn't this dangerous? And he, instead of him directly saying it, you take that step forward and say, oh, he's not noticing it, but I think there's danger here.
Oh, and I mean, just treating oysters like you're playing Russian roulette is such a strange but vivid description.
That one feels on the nose for even me, where I would almost say that is like a beautiful symmetry to bring you back. This is a concrete overlay with the emotions you already feel before I try to take you a new direction.
Absolutely. I mean, oysters is one of those things where I feel like a lot of people are almost afraid of them. So saying that some of them will make you go into rapture, which is very good. People like that. And some will send you to bed with sweat, chills, and vomits. Again, it's showing this dichotomy, good versus evil, all lining up with food. There's a reason he got so popular if this was his first published one. I mean, my God, if he only went up from here, yeah, he deserves a show.
I got to throw this back at you again, that this has got to be the product of a lot of first drafts publishing things that are not good because he's not afraid to, and then having those being like his first draft of his next thing. I'm looking at the line where he talks about the oysters, and I guarantee he sat around and thought, like, I would first go to the fugu fish, like the poison fish. And he probably told that story. He probably wrote that in some places. And it didn't hit as well because it's exotic and people can't really relate to that. They can't go in their memory and imagine that. And then maybe a couple times after he'd already done like the partial success, he probably mentioned like, oh, well, oysters. Tried the story with that one. And that hit harder because people have more experience and can relate to that more. And when he came time to write this article, there was probably about 100 things like that where he had said them before, tried them out before, and through his experience of life, of having conversations and doing these things, it was now a reflex where he could spend time adding new stuff, but he had a lot of things like that where they just come to him. What I'm saying is I think a lot of this stuff, if it's hard as a beginning writer, good. You're doing the right stuff. Like if you can get 2 paragraphs like that in the time it took him to do 20 paragraphs, that seems like the right thing to be doing.
I agree with you. And personally, I view this first whole paragraph as what you would put as intro to video or intro to a podcast of here's something that's just teasing what's to come and getting your attention before I do an intro to the video or intro to anything. This is just the teaser.
So let me ask you a question. Definitely, you're right. Great at getting your attention, which makes it great for an intro. It definitely gets emotion. But he picked this emotion, like that intro isn't supposed to get your attention. It's supposed to get people in the mood for the what you're going to want to do for the whole rest of the article. If it immediately switched to like a happy-go-lucky Disney cartoon, it wouldn't be as satisfying. So why do you think he chose that emotion?
Honestly, I think the conflict is more what he was trying to focus on than an emotion of like darkness or despair or anything. I think he
Conflict.
wanted to capture our attention with that conflict and go, well, I want to avoid that pain. I want to avoid the sweats, chills, and vomits. How can we win this conflict? How can I learn more about this so that way I don't have to suffer from it?
Bro, where you're doing like the whole like sales pitch thing. Start with the pain, and then we can start talking about having that pain removed, and you're extra motivated for it now.
I may have a history in sales at some point.
All right.
So from there, next paragraph. Gastronomy is the science of pain. Professional cooks belong to a secret society whose ancient rituals derive from the principles of stoicism in the face of humiliation, injury, fatigue, and the threat of illness. The members of a tight, well-greased kitchen staff are a lot like a submarine crew, confined for most of their waking hours in hot, airless spaces and ruled by despotic leaders. They often acquire these characteristics of the poor saps who were press-ganged into the royal navies of Napoleonic times: superstition, a contempt for outsiders, and a loyalty to no flag but their own.
And here we're starting to see the pyramid already, because so much of the stuff is already things in the first paragraph, so we don't need to re-talk about those. So now we can start adding additional complexity and nuance onto that.
I just want to point out the secret society, ancient rituals metaphor, because that's playing into the fact that, oh, as someone who is a chef, I have access to all these secret things that you don't know. I know all of these trade secrets, these
Mm.
dark secrets.
So again, with the whole sales pitch format, we're going into like expressing uh, appeal to competence. It's like, I know things more than you do, so this is why you should listen to me. And he does it without directly saying it. Instead of saying like, oh, I know a whole lot because I've been a chef for a long time, or chefs know a lot because of this. He just describes it in this, metaphor,
He makes
and it
them seem
implies it.
almost like a cult guarding the secret information.
And Inception plants it in your head, so you're the one who thinks you thought of it, so you feel it, even you believe it 100%. Because I could like, no, that's not true. Like chefs totally don't do that at all. But I just went along for this ride, like, oh yeah, guess what I just thought of, and then now I believe it.
And I mean, he even points out that to be in the cult, learning these secrets, you have to go through hot, airless spaces ruled by despotic leaders. And he's really selling you on the idea of don't do this yourself. You want to learn these
Mm,
secrets, learn them from me. Don't go out there and do it. You don't want to do that. It's not fun.
that's a good point. It's not just showing the drama of it. You're actually showing like how you'd be better off getting the end result instead of having to go through the work yourself. Yeah, this is packed dense. I can see why this is the first paragraph that I start seeing stuff that you would use in your introduction. I feel the principles here that you could probably use for most crafts is, talk about the environment. If you're not like a freaking 9 to 5 office job like most people, um, talk about the physical environment, and that he is stretching things so far, and it works great. So you can stretch it really far to something dramatic or something powerful emotion or challenge, danger, suffering, or whatever, exoticness. And I think you could apply that to a lot of jobs that you wouldn't expect, but definitely your work.
No, I could definitely make some cult metaphors about the bartending industry.
Yeah, I'm sure you could go a number of ways. Like you could actually pick your emotion. Like you go like with a medical crew in some ways, or you have a lot of choices. With this is what I like. Good writing seems to teach you how you could do anything instead of, well, here's how in my situation I can make things dramatic or dark. It's like, no, here's the pivot point where you can pick any emotion, take it where it needs to go.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to skip the next paragraph and jump into this one. This is where I think it truly becomes very applicable. He is introducing himself to the reader, giving his background why you should trust him.
Okay, so we wait one, two, three. That's the fourth paragraph. He begins talking about himself. I feel like that detail already is important.
I've been a chef in New York for more than 10 years, and for the decade before that, a dishwasher, a prep drone, a line cook, and a sous chef. I came into the business when cooks still smoked on the line and wore headbands. A few years ago, I wasn't surprised to hear rumors of a study that the nation's prison population, which reportedly found that the leading civilian occupation among inmates before they were put behind bars was cook. As most of us in the restaurant business know, there's a powerful strain of criminality in the industry, ranging from the dope dealing busboy with a beeper and cell phone to the restaurant owner who has two sets of accounting books. In fact, it was the unsavory side of the professional cooking that attracted me to it in the first place. In the early 70s, I dropped out of college and transferred to the Culinary Institute of America. I wanted it all: the cuts and burns on hands and wrists, the ghoulish kitchen humor, the free food, and the pilfered booze. The haven't drank enough. The camaraderie that flourished within rigid order and nerve-shattering chaos. I would climb the chain of command from mal carne, meaning bad meat or new guy, to
Hmm.
chefdom, doing whatever it took until I ran my own kitchen and had my own crew of cutthroats, the culinary equivalent of the Wild Bunch.
The top line is about him, but the majority of the paragraph is about the team.
Again, there's a few things that I noticed in this paragraph that makes it really not seem glamorous and not like something you want to do. Having it be criminal, having it have cuts and burns on his wrists. He's making it seem like this dark, horrible thing that why would you want to do this yourself? Just learn the secrets from me.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I want to write it down so you don't forget, but it is wild that you tell me that, and I immediately forget it the next time I read a line. But it just comes back, oh man, this is such a hard job. This is like showing like all the suffering I went through. Like, oh, this is showing how the value proposition. Like I can tell you things that should be. You should pay me a lot of money for what I know because it's so hard to get this knowledge. And it just the way it happens. It's the magic trick. It's brilliant.
But at the same time, he's not listing off anything that actually happened to him. Like, he's just saying that the busboy could be a dope dealer. He's just saying that the job comes with cuts and burns. He doesn't say, like, yeah, I've got scars on my arms and hands from cutting and burn marks all over them. He doesn't say anything like that. As far as we know, that couldn't have happened to him. He just says this normally is what comes with it.
That's a good point. Um, I would actually say that's also a huge benefiting from brevity, where he just says, blah, 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 powerful strain in the industry, criminality in the industry, comma, ranging from the dope dealing busboy. Like, there's no explanation at all. It just says it. And it's done in a way like you can't counter it as that's not fact. He's just talking in metaphor or generalities, but it also massively improves the pacing. This is a mistake that I would make. I'd be writing this. I'm like, okay, crap. Well, I need to find an instance of it that I can actually tell. Otherwise, I don't have a story. Like, Matthew Dick said, you need to find a real instance to talk a story about so it has emotional impact. I'd get stuck on that for 3 hours or more, 3 weeks, let's be honest. Or I'd be trying to like explain it more of, well, sometimes this happens, or, it's been known that occasionally, or it's 3.5% of the time, like he just goes into it. No extra words, less deniability, but also better pacing, more dopamine density. Just comma from the busboy who does this to the swashbuckler who does that. Like, oh, okay, moving forward.
It's coming across more like the guy who's done and seen it all, and you should just take his word for it and not. He's going to tell you the story he wants to tell you, not every single story he knows. And don't interrupt this one to hear about the busboy who deals dope. That's not as good of a story, but I'll just mention it here.
That is the phrase right there. I'm going to tell you the story I want to tell you. No, I think you said it better. Like, you should just trust him. And that is something I struggle with a lot, where coming from the science background, like, you're not supposed to trust anyone. That's how people die. So everything needs to be stated to the most minute detail, and the reader is supposed to demand everything to the minute detail. But for this, yeah, you really should be, hey, I'm going to skip a lot of steps because you wouldn't have even opened this page if you didn't assume that you could trust me or you're going to believe me. So I'm just going to take you to the next step instead of repeating the last one.
Well, he did kind of establish himself. I mean, he said he has been a chef in New York for more than 10 years with a decade of experience before that in the industry. He talks about how he dropped out of college to attend the Culinary Institute of America, which he doesn't say he actually graduated from or anything. Like, for all we know, he took one class there and then just got a job. He just says, I transferred into this. He's
Well, that's kind of what I'm
so
getting
many
at.
things open-ended.
Like, he starts with, like, I was a chef for 10 years. Oh, 10 years would mean that you would know what's happening. But nothing in this tells me that he's an honest person, that I should actually believe anything he's saying.
The other thing that I really like is because there's so many open-ended things in here that you feel like could be more stories. It's not him saying, here's everything I know. It's, here's a good story and the start to 20 more good ones. You should stick around and be my friend if you want to hear those.
Mm. This paragraph makes me want to watch that movie with the coked up stock traders.
No. Wolf of Wall Street, are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This paragraph gives me Wolf of Wall Street vibes about cooking food.
It seems so just interesting and unique of experience because most people who are reading this, I mean, if you're reading the New York Times, you're probably not the type of person who's working in one of these restaurants and experiencing it firsthand. It's such a different lifestyle from anyone who would be exposed to this would have lived.
Mm.
And then this is going to be the last paragraph that I'll read for this.
All right, which one?
We could read the next two if we want, but this next one is the last of him introducing himself. A year ago, my latest doomed mission, a high-profile restaurant in the Times Square area, went out of business. The meat, fish, and producer purveyors got the news that they were going to take it in the neck for yet another ill-conceived enterprise. When customers called for reservations, they were informed by a pre-recorded announcement that our doors had closed. Fresh from that experience, I began thinking about becoming a traitor to my profession.
Okay, fuck you. We have to read the next paragraph.
Before we get to that, there's the last line of this. Fresh from that experience, I began thinking about becoming a traitor to my profession. He just gave us how many paragraphs saying there's all these secret societies, it's like a cult. And now he's saying in this paragraph, I'm thinking about betraying that and willing to give up these secrets.
I wouldn't have assumed that telling people about it would be a cardinal violation, but I could see that being where we go.
It, again, it's making it seem like forbidden knowledge, and what better way to get people interested in saying, I'm not supposed to tell you this?
The great thing, and this is also great that we are the two people looking at this, because honesty and truth matters so much to me. Through my even with my lens, I don't see anything in this writing that is a lie. He's telling a story. He hasn't said there's a concrete instance or something. I'm totally on board. This at the same time really just blows my mind how far you can take a thing and add onto it while still it's still true.
Absolutely. And I mean, chances are he probably has worked with a busboy who is dealing dope. It might not have been dope, it could have been something else, but it's close enough to where you're just going to trust him, and it's probably true. So we can read that next paragraph, because this is the one where it really is introducing the paper again and bringing it back to his main point. Say it's a quiet Monday night. You've just checked in, or you've just checked your coat in that swanky Art Deco update in the Flairton district, and you're looking to tuck into a thick slab of pepper-crusted yellowfin tuna, or a 20-ounce cut of certified black Angus beef. Well done. What are you in for?
Okay, before we get this, I just want to hit on. I get why that is not a lie. Why this is honest, because everything that he's saying really is saying this is my emotion. He's not saying this is what everyone feels or this is exactly what happens. He's saying this is how this industry feels to me. And there's no way we can prove that true or false. Very good chance like he felt some of this or not, but like we really get down to it, it's how he felt. And if he's actually hates the industry, but he's like telling this beautiful story about how he loves it, okay, that's a lie, but we could never ever prove it.
So the rest of this paper goes on to talk about how, well, fish and everything are normally delivered fresh on Friday or Saturday nights. And so if you're going in on a Monday night, you're going to be getting like 4-day-old fish, things like that, and giving secrets of, well, here's when you're going to be getting fresh food versus if you order something on special on like a Tuesday, they're trying to get rid of it so it doesn't go bad. Things like that, and not making it as glamorous, but helping you get a better experience from it and learn from it. So this is a great way of making it more applicable to you, is setting up a metaphor of, all right, let's say you're going to eat at a nice restaurant on a Monday. What are you in for? Let's talk about it, and I'll show you why it might not be as good of a decision as you think it is.
So you get the tone that this is an adventure, which has dangers in it and could go wrong if you don't take proper steps. And then he goes and like, all right, this important but mundane task of getting the best food now has this emotional charge to it of we're on an adventure trying to find the best way.
And this adventure is easily applicable to me because I could go eat on a Monday night. Yeah, that's not a stretch for me. And yeah, I could order seafood, and if I get old seafood that hasn't been refrigerated properly, I could be, again, going up to that first paragraph, sweats, chills, and vomits. That could happen. He's tying it back in, but making it so now it's more relevant to you.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had time to read the whole article yet, but I feel like that's where he was going in a straight line. But I mean, that's actually the more important part. So this is about 3 to 4 minutes of reading before he even starts the article. Like that is the introduction. I would be very curious to see his last paper because I'd like to see his last paper to see if it was shorter and more concise and dense. One thing that hit me really great this past week was someone explained, today we live in information abundance. The bottleneck for our learning is time. Our bottleneck for learning is how quickly we decide what's the important thing to learn versus the thing to skip, which is why things like TikTok and Instagram are actually helpful for deep intellectual things. In the past, people had information scarcity. So when someone would talk, they would give you as much information as possible because that was a gift back then. It's not anymore, but back then it was because you had plenty of time and hardly any information. So like I heard some speech of some president like 30 years ago, and the motherfucker takes like an entire sentence just to say hi. Like, seriously? But back then, that was like, oh, great, he's actually going to give us a whole lot. And now it's a curse. So I would love to see if his writing style just got more like vivid, or if it also got more concise as that situation changed.
That is a very good point, and I'm going to have to find out what his last paper is now. But if you want, we can move on to his first show's intro sequence.
Let's do it. Yeah, we're at an hour now.
Yep.
Ryan's mastering the screen shares things.
Doing my best here. So his first show was No Reservations.
Mm-hmm.
And I could only find a full episode that was in good quality, but I'm just going to play the title sequence from it.
8 years in already.
I'm Anthony Bourdain. That's right. I write, I travel, I eat, and I'm hungry for more.
So that's the title sequence. That's the whole intro he gives himself.
I'll also point out the very first words he say, I write.
Absolutely. It's so interesting that he went from I'm a chef, or I have this history of a chef, to I'm a writer. And the first thing he said was, I'm Anthony Bourdain. He got his name out there in front of people so they would connect the show truly with him. It wasn't just, this is travel show about whatever. It's, no, I'm Anthony Bourdain. This is me. You know who I am. You're going to know who I am. But he just broke it down so simply. I write, I travel, I eat, and I'm hungry for more.
Was there like two videos we were going to compare?
Yep, so there's another one. He eventually decided he wanted to travel more and switched over to CNN, and that is where Parts Unknown came from.
Remind me again, like the names, because I freaking love comparisons. A-B, I think that is like so great for learning art.
So it went from No Reservation to Parts Unknown.
They're both negatives. It's no reservation and no knowledge.
All right, so this is this.
I took a walk through this beautiful world. Felt the cool rain on my shoulder. Found something good in this beautiful world. I felt the rain getting colder.
Now, what's really interesting about that is you may think there was no words to that, but the person who wrote the song, the two guys, actually wrote the song for the show. So every word, felt the rain on my shoulder, all that, technically is about the show and his travels.
I just thought it was like, yeah, nah, yeah.
It's not very obvious, but at that point, he needed no introduction.
Oh, that's clever. Yeah. Yeah. Like, just tying it back to, like, mortals level like us. Like, I see that arc with content where at first you need to keep introducing yourself. And then eventually the whole point is to like have people enjoy you enough that you are the main part, not the content. But you have to do the get to know you stage first. There's also that metaphor of all these short form content that we used to look down on. It's, you date before you get married. You don't just go up to someone and say like, hey, you want to get married? Buy my course. You start like, okay, here's my little short. Don't you like the topic? Okay, you like the topic. Okay, here's an example of the topic on YouTube, and then do that kind of stuff. So having an introduction for his first show and then not needing it for the later show, that's interesting. Good eyes, Ryan. This is fun.
It's really interesting seeing him go from introduction of how many paragraphs talking about himself, like 2 paragraphs, to now it's 5 lines. I'm Anthony Bourdain. I write, I travel, I eat, and I'm hungry for more. To nothing. You don't need to hear anything. You know who I am.
We definitely need to like look at an example of him talking about something else to see how much the writing style itself changed in brevity. But the amount he needs to talk about himself, this makes so much sense that would get smaller. Ooh, it's actually the reverse thing where at the end when he says nothing, that actually does a better introduction because the whole time you are the one who's thinking and remembering and imagining. It's more powerful than him talking about himself.
I mean, it's showing these clips, and if it's not the first season and you're seeing clips that you recognize from previous episodes, it's making you think, oh, I remember when he went to Africa and tried this wild thing. It's bringing back those emotions and memories.
That's one thing I hard learned much later in life was there's many times when somebody that is having a powerful emotion to shut up and they will experience stronger than if you actually say anything to add to it. Like if you give somebody a really good gift and they're really excited about it, like, oh yeah, like, I care a lot about you and I thought a whole lot about it and I found this thing and I know it really means a lot. And that's why this thing's really fit. Like, just shut up. And they're going to like imagine and feel even more.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's easier to let people imagine something than it is to try and fill in that space yourself. It's better to let them just let their minds run.
That was an interesting comparison. I like that. That was cool. I'm glad we're doing this.
You and me both. So that being said, personally, I started out my first show with 2 full paragraphs about me, and they are long ones. And I want to shorten that because I think they're too long and too wordy, and they don't quite describe my current situation anymore. So I can read to you, if you'd like, what I had for the first episode of Season 2 as my kind of self-intro, and I can throw that on the screen if we want.
Yeah. Let's do that, and let's discuss them paragraph by paragraph, and then we can discuss what you have, and then we can discuss about what things you might incorporate from the inspiration you're trying to take.
Absolutely. So I have, my name is Ryan Heinzen. I'm a whiskey sommelier and worked for 3 years in a whiskey bar in Tennessee. There were some bar patrons who came in and threw back a shot, but it was the regulars I was more interested in. Many of them would tell you that I helped teach them about whiskey and even their own taste, but I learned even more valuable lessons from them. These customers have shown me that the experience of a drink is just as important as what's in the glass. Now, some bartenders have an amazing flair for physical feats, tossing and spinning a bottle around, all while creating a fantastic drink and filling their patrons with a sense of wonderment. I can't do that. I've never been the kind of person who seeks the spotlight, but I do like to think I have a flair for storytelling, and it turns out most people are bad at remembering the subtle differences in tasting notes between 2 similar bottles of whiskey, but just like me, they do remember a good story.
I'm going to say I just like the variety in sentence length. I never thought that would mean so much to me, but it does, man. Man, that feels good.
It keeps it from being too wordy on me as well, just trying to read it out loud. If they're all long, flowing sentences, it's hard to get a breath in between.
Oh, good point. Nice.
So that is the main one that I want rewritten. And then the bit I say in every episode, behind every bottle is hundreds of stories. Every step starting from growing grain until it reaches your glass. This spirit is collecting experiences and stories that it would love to tell you. It's my goal to sift through these stories, find the most meaningful, and bring them forward to your attention. This isn't another whiskey review channel or show. This is pure storytelling. I won't analyze every detailed tasting note of the spirit in the bottle. Instead, I'll dive into the details of the spirit behind the bottle. And this is the spirit of, and then whatever bottle I happen to be talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first paragraph is definitely a more solid introduction. I see a lot of overlaps that we can do with that. I'm not sure which angle you want to take it first, because there are things that are just factually different that you would change. But Absolutely. If you wanted to jump into talking about go ahead.
I think the first thing I want to change is trying to start out with my proving myself was my first thought when I wrote this probably 2 years ago. I'm a whiskey sommelier. Why am I saying that right off the bat, feeling like I should prove myself? I shouldn't be doing that. I should be just having you go, yeah, he does know what he's talking about. I shouldn't be trying to say, I went to school about this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I want out. I do think my name is Ryan Heinzen is fine. I could probably shorten it to I'm Ryan Heinzen, like I'm Anthony Bourdain.
Mm. The first thing I would really say is delaying saying your name has an impact. He did that as well. So if you're first talking about the thing you are, that does a stronger job of not just giving suspense, but it does the meet the people where they are and then guide them to where you want them to go. Because if you start off with things that they tangibly or emotionally connect with that also describe you, it feels like they're going like, oh, I'm going from my living room to things I care about, my feelings, and then like, oh, and that's Ryan Heinzen. Like, oh, I feel like I already know this guy.
So in the paper, he actually didn't say his name ever. He didn't say, I'm Anthony Bourdain. He never did that.
Yep.
And I think that was a crime because unless he read who the paper is by, you didn't know to look out for his other things. And then I think he learned from that. And so when he got his show, he did start it out with, I'm Anthony Bourdain. That is the very first thing he says in that title sequence. Now he has an introduction to the show first where it's, I'm going to Austin for South by Southwest and eating really good barbecue and whatever else. And he gets into that light versus dark again. And he absolutely still hits that. But when it's time to introduce himself, the first thing he makes sure people know is his name.
Yeah. This, I'm going to debate with you about whether it's for print or for TV or a podcast. And I don't know if we can get to a agreed. I don't think we can find a universal truth on this, but I think for when you have a little bit more time, like the type of content you're creating, I do think the structure he used was good. He didn't say his name, but effectively when he said, I worked as a chef in New York, that is his introduction. And there was several paragraphs of talking about the world, the industry, the very, very sense-based reasons why you would care about it before he actually says me. In another way, you could kind of see it. It's like, I'm going to screw this up. It's like Batman before he unveils he's Batman. It's like, okay, like the dark fighter and like crimes being crushed. And like, these are all the things he is, but he doesn't say it is him until he like reveals his mask later on. It's a lot more interesting.
Sure.
Like, this is just my suggestion, but I would start off talking something about either the industry you work in, like concretely and emotionally, or the experiences that customers go through with it. one of those two options. And then maybe in the second or third sentence, actually say yourself.
I like that. That's a good point. Do you
Like,
think
if we
that's
look at this,
something that should be in the paragraph before this, though, that little intro teaser paragraph? Or do you think that should be in this introducing yourself paragraph?
well, I'm thinking just to have the same language here. I'm thinking we're sticking with one paragraph to replace this paragraph. That's all I'm going to be able to brain handle. So I'd imagine take some of these later sentences where you're describing the scene and stuff and put those first, and then have your "this is me" like second or third paragraph. I mean, not second or third sentence.
I see. I was going complete opposite and thinking take a lot of that shit out and put it in the kind of teaser paragraph, rely on that for showing, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. Here's a little personal anecdote, or here's something that's related to the story but also shows a more personal connection to it.
I'm not following that. Like, walk me through what you mean.
So for like the first episode that I wrote, because that one's always seared into my head in the first example, how I gave the example of, let me take you back to my 21st birthday. And I told that story. Having more of the, let me tell you about a time I was working behind the bar and late night, lights were down low, my eyes were strained from them just flashing all day anyways, and customer came in and just needed a drink of something and needed something to take his mind away. He just lost his cousin. So I told him the story about this bottle.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing. Your version is a concrete story instead of an abstract description, which is even more powerful. True. So yeah, I like it. You know, that definitely feels right.
More abstract, though. You're right. That's very interesting.
Yeah, you know, I think my experience is it is harder to do an actual story with characters and the characters feeling something and something happening. But if you ever can fit that in, that is more powerful.
That's a good point. I do like the note of abstract just in this paragraph. That's something I'm definitely going to need to explore more.
That is an option for you, because it might be just a hunch that for a specific episode, it's good to have a concrete story that ties to that tone. But if it's a bumper that you're going to be using for every episode or to describe an entire season, you might want it to be abstract, like Bourdain was doing, talking about the industries in general, because then it flows more comfortably into every direction that you might want to take it after.
I do think I also want to try and lean into the like forbidden knowledge and that sort of thing with it, because that is something that, at least personally, I find very appealing. Anytime someone says, well, this isn't something that you're normally supposed to know, my ears perk up and I want to know it instantly.
Yeah, that is brilliant. And like, I'm going to say that again. That's what he did with both of his show titles. Both of them were like, this is what's not there. Like, there's no reservation. Ooh. There's no like destination. Ooh. Like,
great.
You still have the flexibility of what emotion you want to have in that. It could be like, oh, it's a wondrous secret. It's a dangerous secret. You know, it's a change your life secret. You can pick whatever direction you want with it.
That's true. This does read out not nearly as emotional as any of his. So that is something I need to think about, is what emotion I want to put in it. I do think it needs to be at least half the length. I want it to be a lot shorter.
Okay. Those both are great things we can work with. I would actually say, yeah, that's the emotion is the number one thing I would do. Learning that from the voice acting thing is like, holy crap, that blew my mind of how much you can do with that. And it seems like you're not doing anything at all, but it's like a freaking magic wand. So I would actually, that was actually my sincere advice, is let everything else go so that you're not trying to like force multiple things and then cutting yourself in the knees on the emotion. I would say step one, add the emotion and just change, remove, or do any technique that you need to service that as most as possible. And then we can come back to that draft and see about using these other techniques that Bourdain used, which were great, but wouldn't be as powerful as the thing that you're trying to do first.
I think you're absolutely right. That emotion's got to be the forefront thought, and I need to use these other tools to build around that and reinforce that.
It will kind of change every other step you take. So when you pick that, that'll change a lot of things. Also, the big question will be sitting down of knowing, I love this question. I'm happy that I actually understand that this is the question to ask. What tone do you want? Like, what emotion would be the right emotion?
My first instinct says to lean into that culty feel and just go to a almost ridiculous extreme and make it almost Lovecraftian.
So I want to hear you say it. Are we talking like a Taylor Swift cult where everyone's smiling and singing? Are we talking a cult with virgin sacrifices and danger? You know, there's a lot of different cults. Like, cult is a device. It's not an emotion. What is the emotion?
I'm thinking that like air of mystery and danger and superstition, that all in there. So I can talk about mixing things together that you don't fully understand how or where they came from, but you know that they work to make this magical concoction.
Okay, I'm liking this. This already has me so invested. It's like the Harry Potter's potions class, only we can decide it's going to be a little bit dangerous or a lot dangerous.
Oh, I've got a lot of fun ideas now, and I cannot wait. I think I'm just going to delete that and start fresh. But looking at our timer here, our episode already is pretty long. I don't think we want to see me delete and rewrite a whole thing. So for next time, I'll have a full draft written out that you can look over.
Yeah, I'm liking this. I'm really liking the discussion. There is a little bit like making the sausage that we have to do off screen, but I will be very excited to see that. And flat out, the most learning I've got from anything I've ever done is when you just look at something before and after the change. So if people come back next time, see the difference, their brains get to engage and go, oh man, that part makes sense to me. Oh, I don't like that part. I would now know to avoid doing that. And oh, this part I can use myself. Like the comparisons side by side, huge help.
I think I also want to introduce that conflict that he was so masterfully using in his work. The good versus bad, the light versus dark, how he had that in the first sentence is just insane to me. And
if you have something to fight against, you have a reason to fight, to be there. It's also like perfect for your genre, like food. Okay, yeah, maybe you'll choke on a bone, but that never happens. Like many people have died from like methanol.
Oh, and I can talk about the dark history of bartenders getting so seduced by their craft that they fall into a pit of despair that it becomes alcoholism. I can absolutely play up the danger on it. There really is danger to it.
Distilleries explode a lot more often than kitchens.
But yes, they do. Could go
Good
blind.
stuff.
You never know.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to your next season as well. But I'm liking this. What we learned today.
Yeah, I've got a great idea of what emotion I want to start out with. I was looking at it completely differently before we started this, so I really appreciate your eyes on it. I was thinking injecting the emotion into what I already had as kind of a shell, but starting with the emotion and reinforcing and building around it is only going to strengthen that core, and that absolutely is the way I should look at this.
Love it. Love it. So for the wrap up, do you have a question for me? I got a question for you.
Question for me? First question for you I have, when am I going to be doing this for you again? Because I know now you have a script you need to write.
we won't meet again in time. So it's Tuesday. I'm going to be like, working on that, and hopefully I can submit it by at least Sunday, so we have some time.
I am between a job right now, so I've got time to read over something off camera too.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, I will. I would love to do that. I'd love to send you something to work. I think that I've known that will like completely 10x my learning speed to be going back and forth with you, which is why it's just been clawing at my brain, like getting the Airbnb ready and then the trip. Like, I know what the most important thing to do is, but I can't do it now. And now is now.
I'm excited for it already.
Yeah, let's do that next week.
All right. What question do you have for me, my friend?
Okay, so I'm thinking about the coaching session I'm going to do next week. If you could have an hour private tutoring with any living person, who would you pick?
Any living person? Oh, that is such a hard question. Some of the first things that come to mind for me are like famous performers, but the one that I think would be the most interesting to learn from would be Teller from Penn and Teller, who is the one who's completely silent during the performance and has to try and tell this story all through his actions and his partner. He doesn't do any of the talking himself. His emotion is just expression. It's just in his hand movements, his actions. And trying to get that conveyed without any words is just such a mastery of those little things.
That is a brilliant choice. I keep thinking back how, videography taught me how you could actually add a story or emotion so small with no words at all, and learning how to add emotion in places and ways that you never thought you could. Then you add that on top of all the ways that you're normally adding emotion, and you double it.
I'm not going to be a voice actor ever, I don't think. I don't have the range for it. I tend to do very minimalist deliveries and have to rely on the words I write to enter that emotion and get that in. So I think having something for camera that would be those little movements, things like that, so I could still have that minimalist delivery would help me a lot.
The world needs minimalist deliveries. I think the facial expression stuff, that could be really cool. Like a subtle, understated thing that goes along with it would be powerful.
I think a lot of our favorite characters on different TV shows, like one of Ashley and my favorite shows was The Witcher with Henry Cavill in it. And his character is absolutely minimalist delivery, very monotone. But he's just this badass character, got some wit to him, and you love him. And it's because he's always just this gruff delivery. It's always what you expect. But he's still clever with it, and you can still get that emotion even with the minimalist.
Yeah, that's a great example. I liked that character, and I liked his acting a whole lot, so that was really good. All right, let's wrap it up. We'll do this again soon. Next episode, we're going to try something a little unusual. I saw Kevin Rose and Albrecht got together to do a reunion episode of Dig Nation. That was one of my favorite podcasts long ago when I was living in Hawaii, and it's kind of what first got me into podcasts. And watching it now, they're doing the exact same thing. With all the knowledge we've gained over the past year, I can see behind the curtain, see so much more they're doing. And I want to give it a try. I think it'll be fun. There will be drinking. And I also think we're going to learn a lot of other things that we couldn't learn any other way. So just to the basics for people who haven't ever seen it, you and I are each going to pick about 3 each stories, news stories, current events that we find interesting. And then we're going to sit down and we'll take turns handing them to the other person, and then we'll just chat about them, And depending on which ones you pick, you can immensely steer how bizarre or what direction the conversation goes.
Ooh. Okay. I can have some fun with that.
So that'll be good. So I'm going to look forward to it. And then the episode after that, we'll come back and do the revisions that Ryan has made using the stuff we talked about today.
Already looking forward to diving into it. This has been such a great help. You do not understand how much I was going to go in a completely different direction before this.
Yeah, like this was awesome, Ryan. Like, I'm glad you came with this idea. This was great. This was fun. I learned a whole lot. I'm excited about doing more of this. So thank you, man.
You and me both. It's been a pleasure as always.
All right, everybody out there, I would love to hear, what emotion are you using in the current project you're working on? That would be interesting for us to hear. So,
Ooh, one more question for the audience. What's an emotion that you don't think you see enough of in works out there currently?
yeah, that's a good question. Good question. All right, looking forward to see those answers and looking forward to seeing you again too. So, goodbye.